What is going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are here to talk about WWE Clash in Paris, live from the Paris La Défense Arena in Paris, France. And what an unbelievable live audience there was for this show. All night long, going absolutely crazy, especially for the big main event stars up and down the card. Lots of crazy ovations all throughout this entire show, and they were hot for a lot of the action on this show, and a good chunk of it was very good, including the main event, where the World Heavyweight Championship was on the line in a fatal four-way match with Seth Rollins, CM Punk, LA Knight, and Jey Uso, where the ending came off as a not so shocking shocker, which was Seth Rollins retaining the World Heavyweight Championship with an assist from his wife, Becky Lynch, the Women's Intercontinental Champion who successfully defended her title earlier in the show. She came back out in a mask and a hoodie. She gave a low blow to CM Punk, which paved the way for Seth Rollins to retain his World Heavyweight Championship in what was a pretty fun main event match. A lot of chaos, a lot of crazy action going on in this match with all four guys. The crowd loved the baby faces, and they even gave Seth Rollins some cheers at certain points. This match, not the best match of the entire night, but it was a pretty fun match for what it was. And we got, like I said, some cool things. At one point, LA Knight, he probably had the best spot of the entire match, where he went up to the top turnbuckle, had Seth Rollins already laid out on the French announce table on the outside. He goes up top, tries to set up for an elbow drop, but Jey Uso comes up on the apron, tries to pull him down. He swats Jey away. But then he still dives off the top, but then by this point, Seth Rollins has moved, and LA Knight crashes through the announce table. And that's all she wrote for LA Knight. And Jey Uso, he had some cool spots too. CM Punk, Rollins. In the end, it came down to Rollins and Punk. Punk was down in the ring. Rollins went outside, got a steel chair. Before he got back in the ring with it, he took out LA Knight with a stomp. He took out Jey Uso with a stomp. So both those guys out of the equation. So he gets back in the ring. He sets up a chair, like a seated chair, puts Punk's face on it, goes for the stomp. Punk moves out of the way, and Rollins just drives his foot into the chair. Punk gets Rollins up, hits him with the GTS. Rollins bounces off of the ropes, and Punk collapsed to his knees. And as Rollins bounced off the ropes, he collapsed onto Punk's shoulders. And so Punk powers him back up, goes for a second go to sleep, when all of a sudden this mysterious figure comes in out of nowhere, fully dressed up in all black, has a mask on, and they get in the ring and they deliver a low blow to CM Punk. And as soon as the camera focused in on this person, you could tell it was a woman, just based on the build. There's a lot of slimmer wrestlers nowadays, but not this slim. So you could tell it was a woman, and at that point, it was very obvious who it was, which was Becky Lynch. And so she revealed herself. Rollins hits a stomp on Punk and gets the win. One even more shocking than Becky Lynch coming out here is the fact that Seth Rollins didn't pin LA Knight. I was certain that LA Knight was going to be the one to eat the pinfall in this match. So, hey, good for him. In fact, CM Punk, now 2 PLEs in a row, has gotten pinned by Seth Rollins. So, theoretically, that should disqualify him from any future World Heavyweight Championship opportunities. Yes? No? Probably not. But Becky Lynch joins her husband. Does this mean she is a part of the Vision, this faction with Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed? I don't know. Gotta wait for the TV show to figure out what this all means. On its face, just as is, this is a wife helping her husband retain the championship, as he did not have any help from his guys. Why didn't he? We'll get to that in a minute. But obviously the image to close this show, this final PLE event, well, event is in PLE, but nevertheless, this final show on Peacock, because as of the next WWE event, they will be on ESPN. So on this final Peacock WWE PLE, we had the image of Seth Rollins standing tall with his wife, making out with his wife. Both husband and wife are champions. They might be leading this faction now together, which could be interesting to see her play off of Paul Heyman. Maybe if she has her own feuds and stories going on, Heyman can be out there with her. Could be interesting to see their dynamic. I'm not sure. But that image of Seth and Becky together after putting down CM Punk, obviously the immediate speculation goes to, will this set up an AJ Lee return? Ever since CM Punk came back to WWE, almost immediately the question became, will AJ Lee join him at some point? Every year since, we've had a few Royal Rumbles, and the numbers count down in the women's Rumble matches, and people are waiting, hoping, expecting, hyping themselves up to believe that we could possibly get an AJ Lee appearance in one of these Rumble matches. Never get it. Even at the Evolution show earlier this year, some people thought maybe AJ might come out, but nothing. AJ Lee has been very content not getting involved in any of this stuff. Apparently she doesn't even really watch any of this stuff on WWE television, even with her husband there. And there's sometimes that she'll get a name drop from Punk in one of his promos. She apparently doesn't even really watch the product, which I can't blame her. But with how this show went off the air, and now Becky seemingly aligned with Seth Rollins on TV now, does this set up for an AJ Lee return? And could we get a mixed tag team match at some point in the future? Maybe at WrestlePalooza in September, on September 20th, that big show. That card is seemingly looking to be loaded up. We might get John Cena versus Brock Lesnar on that show. Might get Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship on that show. If they don't want Seth defending his World Heavyweight Championship, could we stick him in a mixed tag team match where him and Becky take on CM Punk and a returning AJ Lee? That would be a big attraction for that show, and would probably get a little bit extra eyeballs onto that show, which would not be on the other show taking place on that night, which is AEW All Out. So, food for thought. I don't know. Honestly, AJ, at this point, she has gone this long without coming back. I cannot conceive of her possibly coming back for this, but if there were ever a time, a Rumble cameo or any other time, all of that, I mean, obviously it could have happened, it didn't. But if there were ever a very appropriate time for AJ Lee to pop up on TV and return for at least a one-off match, this would be it. So, and then of course, that introduces the idea, well, if she does that, could she come back and then challenge Becky for her Women's Intercontinental Championship at some point on a show? And that's a whole can of worms right there. But seeing as how they went off the air with Becky and Rollins standing tall over CM Punk, that does at least bring up the question of AJ Lee coming back, and it does not sound quite as far-fetched as it has in the past. So there you go as far as that's concerned. But I do think this Rollins Punk stuff is going to continue. I don't know when this will end between the two of them. It's got to at some point. This has been an ongoing feud since CM Punk returned at Survivor Series 2 years ago. These guys have been at each other's throats since then. At some point, there needs to be a declarative, definitive ending to this feud between the two of them. Not sure when that's going to happen, but hopefully it happens soon. But I mentioned how Seth Rollins, he was out there all alone by himself. No Paul Heyman, no Bronson Reed, no Braun Breaker. Why is that? Well, that's because at the beginning of the show, we opened with a match between Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed, which was a great match. Well, I don't know about great. It was a very good match. It was a very good way to start the show. It was a very basic match. Very, two big dudes, big baby face, even bigger heel, and the dynamic there. A very basic, kind of almost old school type of match between these two. Just extra heightened and made even stronger by a fantastic crowd. The crowd was hot at the very start of the show, going absolutely nuts for Roman Reigns. He was just a top tier level superstar to these people, megastar even. So that helped elevate the match to be even better than it was. But I was hoping, against hope, that Bronson Reed could pull out a win over Roman Reigns, but it did not happen. Roman Reigns did end up beating Bronson Reed with a spear. Like I said, pretty basic match. The real story was the post-match, because after the match, Paul Heyman is in the corner. He's consoling Bronson Reed. Then Roman Reigns, who was outside the ring at this point, he gets back in and tries to take back his shoes. Of course, Bronson Reed is the keeper of the Shula Fala after jacking Roman's sneakers on several occasions over the past couple of weeks. So Roman goes to get the sneakers back. He does. And then he locks Paul Heyman in a guillotine and makes him pass out. And then Roman goes back outside, goes up on the announce table. He's signing his shoes. He's throwing them out to the crowd. But then out of nowhere comes Braun Breaker, who leaps up on the announce table, runs across the French table, spears Roman through the American announce table. And at this point, this is the demise of Roman Reigns. I can't even recount every single thing that happened to him, so I'm going to try to look back through my notes here and see all the damage that was done to Roman Reigns. So he got speared through the announce table, and he's down, so he's getting helped out by officials and all of that. And the Bronze, Reed and Breaker, they go to help Heyman to the back. And so then Heyman's gone. They kind of left him there, but he disappeared. Braun Breaker runs back and spears Roman on the floor. Then Reed reappears, tosses Roman back in the ring, goes up top, hits him with a tsunami splash. So now Roman, he's done. They try to get Reed and Breaker out of there. They try to help out Roman. They got officials. They got the stretcher out. So now he's being strapped to a stretcher in the ring. Then Bronson Reed comes back and delivers another tsunami splash onto Roman Reigns, this time while he is strapped to the stretcher. And then Jey Uso, from out of nowhere, I think from the crowd or something, he runs out. He tries to fend off the heels, but ultimately he gets speared by Braun Breaker. And then Bronson Reed goes up top and hits yet another tsunami splash onto Roman Reigns while still strapped to the stretcher. So, bad night here for Roman Reigns. Jey Uso came out, tried to help, didn't work out too well for him. He was selling the injured ribs during the main event. It didn't really play a huge part in the finish of the match or the story of the match, but it was basically an out for him as to why he didn't have a lot of energy to win, I guess. But Roman, he was taken out here by the Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. He got destroyed by these men. And then they went to like a break or something. They came back. They showed Adam Pearce backstage with Reed and Breaker, and he told them that he is ejecting them from the arena. And if they show up again on this show, then they will be suspended indefinitely without pay. So that explained why they weren't going to be in the main event, and Heyman was sent to the hospital after passing out to the guillotine. That explained why he wasn't out there as well. So I assume they'll appear on Raw, but they weren't here. But It would have been nice to see Reed actually win the match over Roman and then maybe even still do all this stuff to really put him down. But Roman, they want to make him and keep him looking strong. So he did get the official win of the match, but he was left laying and he got destroyed by the two heels. So I don't know when the next time we'll see him is going to be. He is going to be off filming for Street Fighter, which is where Cody Rhodes currently is right now as well. He should be back in time for WrestlePalooza. Roman, probably not so much. I think Roman, his filming schedule was later, so I think we might not be seeing him back until maybe Crown Jewel. If not that, then maybe around Survivor Series, especially if they do War Games and they want to put Rollins and his crew in the War Games match. I could definitely see Roman being added to that equation. But this was a way to write off Roman from TV, and it was an effective way to do it. I thought this was pretty good, very strong way to put over the heels and get some good heat to send Roman on his way. Now, the main event was fun, but it was not the best match of the night, nor was the Donnybrook match, the good old-fashioned Donnybrook between Sheamus and Rusev, which was a great brawl. This was a very violent match between the two of them. Not AEW violent, but violent for the sake of two big dudes in WWE going at it. They had all the toys. They had a bunch of weapons used in this match. A bunch of tables. They had kendo sticks. They had chairs. The shillelagh, of course. They even had these giant whiskey barrels all around ringside. At one point, Sheamus hit the white noise on Rusev off of this giant tower of barrels, and they crashed down through two tables. And honestly, as crazy as that spot was, one of the craziest spots of the entire match was Sheamus just hitting Rusev with a bro kick and Rusev kicking out, because you never see Sheamus hit a bro kick and someone kick out of it. Very rarely. Other than maybe like Roman Reigns over the past several years, I think that's the only person who I can think of off the top of my head who has really kicked out of the bro kick. Otherwise, you don't see anybody do that. So to see it here was a big deal. And even the finish was a bit of a shock for me. I had Sheamus pegged to win this match, but Rusev got the win. And not only a win, but a clean win. And not just any clean win, a clean tap-out win. Rusev locked in the accolade, and he locked it in using a shillelagh. He basically had a shillelagh grinding in the mouth of Sheamus. He reared back on the accolade, and Sheamus tapped out. Didn't even pass out to it. He tapped out right on Rusev's leg, and Rusev gets the win and basically wins this feud that has lasted for several weeks on Raw between Rusev and Sheamus. They've had some pretty good matches so far. This was easily the best of the ones they've had and was one of the better matches on this show and was a lot of fun. But it was the best match of the night up until the match that immediately followed it, and the match that took place right before the main event, which was John Cena versus Logan Paul. A match with not the best build up to it. Cena's fresh off of turning back into a babyface. Logan Paul, easily one of the most hated men in WWE. So the two of them went out here and they had a fantastic wrestling match that was paying a lot of respect and homage to past John Cena opponents. We had Logan Paul hitting a bunch of uppercuts on Cena, and even Michael Cole referenced Cesaro. And at one point, there was a big Cesaro homage when Logan Paul launched Cena up in the air and caught him with an uppercut in midair. So that was crazy to just hear Cesaro's name dropped like that. We had Logan Paul hit Cena with a zigzag, Dolph Ziggler's finish, and only good for a 2 count, of course. That was the thing with this match. A lot of these moves were kicked out of. So we had that. We had at one point John Cena hitting the end of days on Logan, which was crazy because I never would have expected that. Only good for a 2 count, which was really hilarious because when Baron Corbin was in the company, not very many people kicked out of the end of days. That was one of the more protected finishers In a day and age where finishers don't mean anything, the end of days is one of the more protected ones. So seeing it get kicked out of here on this show was pretty funny. Then, of course, John Cena busts out in a Styles clash on Logan Paul. And, of course, that made the Paris fans go crazy. They love AJ Styles. We saw that at the Lyon, France show last year, the Backlash match with Cody Rhodes in the main event, where they were going crazy for AJ. AJ's going to be competing in Paris this upcoming Raw in an Intercontinental Championship match with Dominic, so I imagine they'll react the same way there. But again, Cena hit the Styles Clash here, only good for a 2 count. These two, Cena and Logan Paul, they were throwing everything at each other. Other people's finishing moves, their own finishing moves. Cena hit a few attitude adjustments. Logan Paul kicked out of them. Logan hit his sucker punch. He hit his Paul from Grace, that frog splash that he does. He hit a few of those in succession. Only good for 2 counts all throughout the way. But these fans, they were just biting on all of it. Cena, when he came out, Roman Reigns got an electric reaction, but Cena's, my God, you couldn't even hear his theme music playing when he came out. And then all throughout the match, at certain points, when there was like a down part of the match, if Logan Paul had Cena in a rest hold or something, the fans were just making noise and jumping up and down, going crazy, chanting something for John Cena. So they were all into this match. They were biting on all the near falls, a lot of them very close. There was a few too many for me, because there was one part of the match where I thought, okay, that's a pretty clever way to finish the match, where Logan Paul stole the 5 moves of doom. He was going to hit the 5-knuckle shuffle, but then Cena popped up, hit him with an attitude adjustment, but it was only good for a 2 count. Looking back on the match, I kind of wish they ended it there, but they did continue on a little bit longer, and in the end, Cena caught Logan Paul in midair as Logan hit a dive, caught him, hit him with an attitude adjustment, rolled through, and tried to hit him with the second one, but Logan slipped out of it, caught Cena in the face with the right hand, but then Cena bounced off the ropes, basically no-sold it, and lifted Logan Paul back up, hit him with an attitude adjustment, but he kind of slumped over onto Logan for the cover, not like he didn't hook the leg or anything like that, so he did sell the punch a little bit, but he hit the move, kind of places himself onto Logan, pins him, 1, 2, 3, and that's all she wrote. John Cena wins here in his 99th pay-per-view PLE victory. John Cena victorious over Logan Paul. This was a great match. Not quite as good as the match that Cena had with Cody at SummerSlam, but still up there in terms of caliber, in terms of great John Cena matches. In terms of great John Cena matches that we have not had a lot of this year because of that stupid failure of a heel turn that they forced him to have for 5 months. Looking back on some of those matches, the Mania match was awful. The matches with Randy and CM Punk were better, but overbooked as all hell. And seeing what they did with Cena and Cody at SummerSlam and seeing what they did with him and Logan Paul here on this show, these were 2 great matches. And it's, you would look at the earlier part of the year and think, oh, Cena's washed. He doesn't have that level in him anymore. He can't bust out those kind of great matches anymore. He's done for. This is his last year. It's sad to see it. Now all of a sudden Cena's busting out these great matches. And it's like, man, if only he could have just done this all year and we didn't have to waste everyone's time with that debacle of a heel turn for John Cena. But we're getting it now. We got it here. Not sure if we're going to get this with Brock Lesnar at WrestlePalooza, which is the rumored match. But, you know, we'll see what happens. I don't have a whole lot of high expectations for that match. I personally don't have a whole lot of interest in that match, nor the presence of Brock Lesnar in general, but we're going to get it. We're going to see it, and hopefully Cena can pull out a great match from Brock Lesnar, because I have no doubt now that Cena still does have it in him to have great matches, but he has to be in there with the right person. And Logan Paul on this show was the right person. Like him or not, which a lot of people do not, strongly do not, he is very talented. We've seen him go out there with people like Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton and Kevin Owens and LA Knight, Rey Mysterio, just to name a few people. He's gone out there and had some really good matches. He was one of the main highlights of that tag match at SummerSlam with Jelly Roll involved. So he has it in him to put on these great matches. He's a great heel. He gets great heat, and he goes out there and puts on these great performances. And he can safely say that he gave John Cena one of his last great matches. As Cena's career is winding down, we only have so many dates left for him. Logan Paul can lay claim that he gave Cena one of his last best matches. So props to him, respect to him. So those were the big things on the show. Some of the lesser things that took place on the show. We had a WWE Tag Team Championship match as the Street Profits challenged the Wyatt Six. And the fans were super hot for their entrances. They were going crazy for the Profits, doing that hand gesture for them. They were even singing Code Orange's Shatter when the Wyatts came out. As soon as the bell rang, they didn't really care. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that the first hour of the show was dedicated to that stuff with Roman and Reed and Breaker and all that. Maybe. But the match itself didn't have much of a story. They tried to start one up with sowing some seeds and teases of dissension between Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. There was a little bit of it at the very beginning, but as the match went on, it was just a regular match. And then down the stretch, on the outside, we had Rowan confront Dawkins. The two of them went face to face. And then Loomis came out of nowhere and knocked Dawkins over the barricade into the crowd. Rowan and Loomis, they're right there together celebrating. Montez comes soaring out of the ring over the post onto both men. And then he looked at Uncle Howdy in the crowd and gave him the suck it gesture. So as he's getting back in the ring, Nikki Cross is grabbing his leg from underneath the ring. She's peeking her head out and she's pulling on his leg. The referee, meanwhile, in the ring is distracted. Uncle Howdy hits Montez with a Sister Abigail on the floor. And then they throw him back in the ring. He gets laid out by Loomis and Gacy, and they pin him and retain their titles. I didn't hate the match, but I didn't really come away with it feeling much of anything. It just kind of came and went. So the Wyatts are still champions. I imagine a feud with Solo and his MFTs is impending, and for as bad of a show as SmackDown has become over the past several months, I imagine it will only get even worse with a never-ending feud between the Wyatt Six and the MFTs. Two of the least interesting acts on the show stuck in a feud together, sucking up all the oxygen of the show. But maybe with the two of them being as uninteresting as they are, if they just throw them in together, maybe that will just cancel each other out. Maybe. I don't know. But I see that on the horizon. So there's that. And then the Women's Intercontinental Championship was on the line on this show. Becky, this was her first appearance of the night. She defended against Nikki Bella. Well, Becky was the heel, but she was cheered far more than Nikki Bella was. And I will say, after months of great matches with Becky and Lyra, a triple threat with Becky, Lyra, and Bayley, some really good matches from Becky Lynch so far since she's come back, this was not one of them. In fact, this was probably the weakest, dare I say the worst. This was pretty rough, especially one spot where Nikki came off the turnbuckle looking to hit basically like a disaster kick on Becky. Becky wasn't in position for it. Nikki goes to hit it, face plants, and then Becky like almost kind of sells it. Not really, but she kind of like winces a little bit, acting like she sold it. Didn't really. There was a few things like that in this match. It just wasn't all that exciting. And the fans were entertaining themselves by cheering for Becky more than Nikki. Nikki would lock in some submissions and she was getting booed because they did not want to see Nikki Bella win that championship on this show. And she did not. Becky got a roll up and got the win. So hopefully that is it. And if we are now going to have Becky joining the Vision and joining up with Rollins and his crew, if they're going to go in the direction of having her and Rollins together against CM Punk and a returning AJ Lee, that is far and away better than anything in-ring wise we could get with Becky and Nikki. She beat her. Let's move on. Even if that's not what they do, let's still move on from this. So that's it. And that is it for this entire show. The show opened very strong, good match, good angle to, follow it up with. The Donnybrook was a fun brawl. Cena and Logan, best match of the entire night. The Fatal 4-Way, a very fun main event for this show. Those other two championship matches, you can kind of take it or leave it. They didn't bring the show down dramatically, but they did enough to where, it's a thumbs up show, not overly enthusiastic, nothing blow away other than Cena and Logan Paul. That's probably the one thing on the show. If you didn't see that, go seek that out, but still, decent show and a solid way to close out this Peacock era for WWE. They have aired all of their main roster shows on this platform since February of 2021. So it's a very big deal that they are leaving and heading to ESPN. Of course, their NXT shows are still there, but as for the main roster stuff, it is no more. So best of luck to the people who are going to spend $30 a month on the ESPN shows. But yeah, so that's that. Hopefully you all enjoyed this review. Next time I'm on here talking about stuff, it will be about one show or another. WrestlePalooza and All Out are both on the same night. I am debating what I want to do. I'm thinking about doing a double review and embarking on the challenge of watching both shows simultaneously and reviewing them both at the same time. We'll see what happens as we get closer to that show. If anything pops up, if anything with the build up and the matches and the cards announced, if anything makes me lean more towards one show over the other, I'm not sure, but it should be a very interesting time. And until then, hopefully you guys had fun. Hit that like button, subscribe, follow me on Twitter/X at DerekJ Speaks. Until next time, thank you. See you later.